Hello and welcome to this webinar today by RotaPal. My name is Harry Eves and I'm going to be your host today, and today we're going to cover the top 5 biggest frustrations that face our healthcare professionals when it comes to Rota management. As a company, we want to make sure that when we are developing our product, we're addressing those fundamental issues that face our healthcare professionals today. That's why we think as a company it's very important that we address the issues from a frontline user perspective. So we like to spend some time with our clients, with potential clients, and understand what are those biggest issues and how as a company can we address those by the product that we deliver them. So today we're going to cover the top 5 biggest frustrations. We're going to see as a company how we're going to address those and how we're addressing them currently and how we intend to do that in the future. We will then just cover a bit more on the product and give you a bit of a run through as to how it works from a frontline user perspective, but also from an administrative perspective. And hopefully they'll answer some of those questions that you might have. And at any stage, I want you to know that you can ask any questions, just put them in the chat box and we'll try and address those towards the end of the call. So hey, let's get started. So coming in at number 5 is the response time to receiving an updated Excel. You probably can relate to this a lot. How many times have you found yourself working from an outdated spreadsheet that hasn't been updated, or simply that you're working from one that is old, you just haven't opened up the correct one yet? This is a very basic and fundamental issue with offline-based Rota systems. With all the different swaps and requests that are coming in, quite frequently you can get upwards of as this quote would suggest, 50 versions of the same Rota being circulated with slight changes. Inevitably, you're going to be looking at the wrong one and discrepancies will arise from that. It's hugely frustrating, especially when it comes to trying to book leave or trying to facilitate swaps. And with all these different changes that are coming in, it can be sometimes hard for the coordinators to update and again, to make sure that you're accessing the correct one. And how does RotaPal affect that? Well, RotaPal is a real-time Rota management communication system. That means that any changes that are made through the platform are made instantly with no reason or need for any kind of coordinator to manually update the system. This will obviously save the coordinators a significant amount of time instead of not having to send out these kind of new versions. And again, it improves the ability for staff to actually access their correct Rota without necessarily having to look up different versions of it. So again, users are no longer reliant on having to receive that new version. It is very much instantly available to them. What does that mean in practical terms? Well, no more email updates are having to be sent. As I say, the changes are made live in the platform and there's an audible trace of any changes that have been made. So you can forget about having to send an email that says this is the new version of the Rota. Everybody can instantly access the live version of the Rota through the app. Coming in at number 4 is the response time to your requests. Now, this is similar to the last one, but it's getting a bit more personal, as this is looking at the time between when somebody, for instance, requests leave and when their coordinator gets back to them. Now, let's put our feet in the shoes of a coordinator for 1 minute. At the start of a rotation, they will be inundated with different requests coming in from multiple different users. There'll be WhatsApp, there'll be email threads, and there'll be lots of information that they're going to have to divulge and then obviously approve or decline all of these requests. This can be challenging for the coordinator, but it can also be hugely frustrating for those members of staff who are looking to get those days leave and make their plans, as well as obviously make sure that they're working the appropriate shifts. So if we look at one of those quotes, processing swaps and leave requests can be really frustrating, as it can take what feels like forever for coordinators to respond. Let's not blame the coordinator. There's lots of requests coming in and we need to do something about that. And what RotaPal does, RotaPal centralizes all of this information into the one uniform platform. That means all the swap requests are being processed through RotaPal, all the leave requests are being processed through RotaPal, and those can all be centralized and actioned in one full sweep. Notifications are also sent through that. So if we look at those core benefits there, we look at the time-stamped and uniform request, which enables coordinators to make efficient and actionable decisions. And with the push notifications through the mobile app and the backup emails increasing that response time to requests. That means people are instantly notified both when requests come through and when they are actioned by those coordinators. What that means in a practical time, over 500 hours of admin time can be saved in just 6 months. That was a case study that we did with the Western Trust, and that had really big impacts in the amount of admin time that both coordinators and clinicians were having to spend. Number 3, trying to plan leave. Now, this really doesn't need much of an introduction. We're all aware of the frustrations and challenges that come with planning leave, but let's have a look at some of those core issues that relate to planning leave. So firstly, have you even got a record of when your colleagues are also off on leave that makes it easier for you to plan leave around them? Or is that record even up to date? Now, if neither of those exist, it becomes very challenging to obviously look at what you're doing when your colleagues are off on leave. Is it going to be viable in that first instance? It really heightens and complicates things even further for coordinators when they're trying to obviously approve leave, but also for the users when they're trying to check whether their leave is viable in the first place. What RotaPal does to address this is we've developed a traffic light calendar for actually checking whether leave is viable in that first instance. It cuts down a significant amount of admin time, and if you look at some of those core benefits, users have a live and realistic view of when they can apply for leave, cutting out that back and forth of email transactions or WhatsApps, whatever it might be that you communicate on. And again, coordinators receive less requests, and the requests they do receive, they can seamlessly action through the app. So again, we're not looking at complicating things. There's a full traceability of any records of when requests do come in, and again, people can check whether they can take leave first and foremost from the calendar app. In September 2021, we had a 94% approval rate for leave requests that were made through the RotaPal app. Number 2, making shift swaps. Think back to the last time you made a swap. How many steps and how many colleagues did you have to speak to just in order to process that one swap? A key issue with that is obviously you know which shift that you want to swap out of, but then you've got to consider the reciprocal swap. Which colleagues that you're going to contact, which shifts you're going to request. Then you've got to consider the actual updates of the Rota. Who's going to update that, who's going to redistribute that. There are a lot of steps in that process that could take a considerable amount of time just to complete that one simple swap transaction. So as this quote would suggest, it's extremely difficult to make swaps with colleagues, especially via WhatsApp and a non-responsive coordinator. So we wanted to look at how we can best improve that situation through the application of RotaPal. So what RotaPal does, it facilitates that end-to-end swap management. So that looks at what shift do you want to swap out of, and looking at all your colleagues, maybe a select colleague, and look at the potential swaps that you could do in return. You can submit the request through the mobile application, your colleague will receive a notification, and they can simply accept it or decline it. If they accept it, the Rota is updated, everybody is kept up to date with those changes through a history log, and that way it can really reduce down the amount of time that the coordinators are spending on it. So there's core benefits when you have requesting and actioning swaps directly with colleagues without the need to send or process multiple emails. Everything's done directly through the app. And then with the addition of the push notifications and the instant dissemination of updates, all colleagues are kept up to date always. And what does this look like in practical terms? Well, clinicians can save upwards of 90% of their time that they would normally spend trying to facilitate these swaps by simply being able to log on to the application, looking at the swap that they want to make, and completing that seamlessly in just a matter of moments. And the number one biggest frustration is not knowing who's on call. You ask around, you ring up switchboard, and you still have to ask, are you on call today? Why is that? Because as we've covered over these last 4 points, offline rotas and paper-based systems are frequently out of date. The discrepancies that can arise by verbal swaps, by email threads, by miscommunication, rotas are so frequently out of date. And that's why when you're ringing up switchboard and they're accessing the same rotas that were distributed maybe 3 months ago that are probably out of date by now, you can encounter delays anywhere from 5 minutes to 55 minutes. And maybe you've got the time to sit on the call with switchboard for 55 minutes. My guess is you probably don't. And as this respondent to the survey quite eloquently put, our Excel Rota is rarely up to date. To provide the best possible care, it shouldn't be potluck if we manage to get through to who the right consultant is who's on call. And how we're trying to address that at RotaPal, with real-time Rota display, RotaPal provides each user with direct and immediate access to each colleague who's working. That means no more scrambling around to find the latest Excel or encountering unnecessary delays. The two core benefits are at the touch of a button. The RotaPal app enables you to have instant access to a live view of each colleague in your team or linked Rota. With pre-approval, users can directly contact their colleagues through the app. No more delays, and you have instant access to not only the rotas, but who is on call within those rotas across your team, directly at the touch of a button in the palm of your hand. What does that mean in practical terms? Well, a survey that we did with one of our clients, over 75 respondents stated that the app had improved not just knowing who was on call, but actually being able to contact that colleague directly. This has been a huge improvement, and as I'm sure you can agree, when it comes to those time-critical emergency, it is imperative that you are able to access who that colleague is who's on call. Okay, so let's have a look at the actual RotaPal app, where the majority of users will be accessing their Rota. So if we just open up the app, The first screen that we're hit with is who's on call today. So immediately you get direct access to who those individuals are. If you need to contact any of those individuals, all you need to do is click on their name, and then you can actually contact that individual directly through the app. If you want to look at your own calendar, so let's look at the month view first off. So you can see again, just with complete clarity as to what you're going to be working throughout the entirety of that month. So you see that the big icons will represent different shifts. So you can see there's day shifts, there's night shifts, there's long shifts. Whatever way you want to set it up, you can do that. You also have different circles and different little colors that represent different activities. So it could be that there's clinics, theatres, wards, and again events as well. So you can add all of that into that one centralized view. If you wanted to see who you're working with on any given day, again, just hit the staff button, you'll be able to access that information. On this page, you can also swap shifts as well. So let's take for an example, let's go for the 25th of January, it's a night shift, and we want to swap out of that. All we need to do is click on the 25th and then hit the swap icon. Then we can start to actually build out what that swap will look like. So we can select the individuals. So let's select these individuals. We can select that it's a night shift and that it's on a Tuesday. And then we're presented with the different options there as potential swaps that we can do. So we can select kind of one shift, we can select multiple shifts and send those requests off. Very quick, very simple, and those users will now be sent a notification of that swap that's come through. The next tab is the day view. So again, just looking at what you're going to be doing on any given day. You can see it kind of just in a more probably clearer format, just from day to day, is where you're meant to be and what you're going to be doing. Again, any events that are added into that will be added in. Any leave will also be added into this as well. In the bottom right, you'll see that there's a notifications tab or alerts tab. Again, this will just house all those different kind of swap requests, link rotas requests, any invites that you received to any rotas, and that's how you'll action them through this. So you can see these are the requests that I've made, these kind of top couple of ones here, which I can cancel at any time. Again, you can scroll down, you'll see any ones that have been sent to you. So you can see that Hannah Holly has requested this swap for the Saturday the 5th, and she's willing to work my 19th or the 28th there in return. And all I'll need to do to accept that or decline it, well, in this case, I'll just accept the 28th here and just click accept, and then Hannah will be sent a notification that I've accepted that swap, and again, it'll flood through into the activity log there, so there's complete traceability of any swaps or changes that have been made. From a leave perspective, if I wanted to add leave, I need to go to the side navigational bar here, and we just see my leave here. So I just click on my leave. You can see the rota has been selected at the top here. You can see all the requests that I've made. They're pending in this, and they're all pending down here. Again, if I wanted to add leave, I can just hit the big blue button on the bottom right, or again, I look at the calendar overview. Now, this is the very unique traffic light calendar system. So if I open up that traffic light calendar system, let's go to February here, you can see a good representation of how that looks. So you can see these green squares represent days that I can definitely take leave on. You can see the amber squares represent that there's somebody already off on leave on that particular day, and the red square that the maximum quota has been met for that particular day. So I know that I don't have to actually look up every given day and check whether it's viable or not. In this screen, I'm able to see immediately whether that leave request will be viable. So you can see, if I just clicked on to the 21st here, you see there's two requests that have already been put in, one's approved and one's pending, so I know to avoid those days. But when I want to add in my leave, all I need to go is select the, let's say from the 7th to the 11th here, and add that in here, and we can see that this is now got a summary view of what that leave looks like. You can add in different types of leave, so again, it could be annual, study, professional, whatever it might be, and you can add that in there. If you want to add a message, you can, and again, we can select who the approver is. So for this one, I'm just going to put it in as Harry, and then add. Now again, the approver will be sent a notification of that request that's come through. There'll be automated emails as well in the background, just to keep everyone up to date. The next stage, obviously, in leave is looking at the approval side of the things as well. So if you're an admin, you'll have the leave manager on the left-hand side in the navigational bar, and then all you need to do again is just select the rota that you want to look at and any of the requests that have come through for that particular rota. So you can see all these requests that have been approved, any that have been declined here, maybe some that are pending. And again, these little colours here will represent whether the status of that particular day. So we can scroll down and we can see that this request here for the 24th, it is pending. It's also in a kind of amber colour as well, so that presents there's already people already off on leave on that particular day, but it should be good to go. If it wasn't good, then it would change to red as well. So we can go ahead and approve that. Very simple, very direct. You're not having to write out any emails, you can just submit that. and that's it updated for all. So when it comes to other aspects to actually kind of making changes to the Rota, again, that can be done through the mobile app as well. If you go to My Rotas, and then you'll have, if you're an admin, you'll have you'll have the edit option and the swap option as well. So I'll just show you what it looks like from an edit option. So if you do need to make those kind of changes on the go, and you're not reliant on the individuals themselves making the swaps or changes, you can make changes here. So all I need to do, for example, let's take for example that Walter can't do those Saturday and Sunday night shifts. I can remove those from Walter, and then I can add them into another individual. So for example, Ross here. And what that'll do is just update that in real time. Everybody's made aware of those changes, and that's it updated. So there's no redistribution of the Excel, as always. It's all made in real time, and those are the changes that have been made. I would highlight just in that side navigational bar, again, you can create rotas through the mobile app as well. And to do that, there's other demos that I can show you. Again, in the settings tab here, we have a very long list of different tutorial videos that you can access. So if you do have any questions or queries, or you want to just get a bit more clarification on anything, you can look up that. So for example, if it is something to do with leave, all you do is search leave. And let's say to cancel leave requests, you get access to all this information here, and you can actually you can view that within the mobile app again itself. So that is kind of a quick and summary over the mobile app itself. Take time maybe just to flick around and find out all the different features that you have there, but this will hopefully give you a kind of a broad understanding of how that will be operated from the kind of front end and majority users. And of course, RotaPal is available on the web at rotapal.com. And I just want to briefly go over that because I don't want to dive into all the details of it at this stage, but I just want to go briefly over what we would have covered from an admin perspective. So you see this first screen when you first log on, you've got the kind of an overview of all those different features that we'd have showed you in the mobile app. If I just open up the actual Rota, so this is where the kind of, again, a lot of the admin will be done. And just open that up in the Rota Builder section. Once we open that up again, we've got a clear overview. In this case, it's a week view. You can change that to a month view as well. You can kind of flick around to whatever week or month that you want to look at here. You've got users on the left-hand side. You've got a kind of a daily count or a kind of a total count of all those different shifts that they'll be working. If you need to make any changes, all you need to do is obviously click on the shift that you want to change, and you can edit that, delete it. Whether that's moving it to a current user, or again moving it on to possibly even a locum line. So maybe it's just the one shift, maybe it's a whole batch of different shifts that you want to move on over to a locum line. That way people on the Rota can actually see those locum shifts cross-reference with their current Rota. Again, that could be that they could fulfill them internally, or again you can kind of put it out to the kind of the wider trust or again the agency that way as well. Just to give you an idea of particularly the leave manager as well, so to give you that kind of the overarching view, and this way we're going to see this all in one screen. And we can see on the left hand side we've got the calendar, what people are working on any given day. We've got obviously the colours associated to. So if I flick over to the February example that we showed in the mobile app, we can see on the 21st we've got Harry and Hannah that have requested leave for these days. Quickly can see that Harry's on a day shift but Hannah is on a night shift. So what I want to do there is I just want to look at the requests that have come through. So I'm going to select Hannah's, and we see that this is her request that she's made for the 21st of February. And all we want to do here is reject that and just simply say that she is currently down to work a night shift and that we want her to swap out of that before she puts her request in. Again, all we need to do is action that request, it'll submit that, and Hannah will receive a notification, and then she can also make the necessary changes before submitting the request again. So again, just in-house, all up to date, and on all notifications that'll back up that information. As I said, there's a plethora of information that you can access once you sign up to RotaPal. You'll be able to access all those tutorial videos, all the FAQs, and then you can obviously start to kind of looking at the intricacies of actually how rotas are built and how they are managed on an ongoing basis through the web. Okay, so let's see if we can answer some of the questions that you guys have asked in the question box. So don't worry if you haven't had a chance to ask any questions, and you do have some questions that we're not able to cover today. Don't worry, you can contact us directly or we'll get back to you. Just send us a message, and either myself or one of the team will be able to get back to you in due course. So just have a look at some of the questions that have been asked already as I look down the chat box. So the first question is, how long does it take to onboard a team? So onboarding a team, whether it could be that you're onboarding a larger kind of trust, and obviously that takes considerable longer time than looking at a particular kind of team in terms of just a specialty itself. If we look at the specialty, it doesn't take any time really at all. It can be set up in a matter of days. All we really need to rely on is obviously getting the appropriate information sent over to, so the likes of the rotas, and obviously the contact details of those individuals that will be linked in with those rotas. Once we get that information, we can get a quick turnaround time in terms of upload, and then we can obviously publish that once we've given the training to the particular leads that are involved in that. Now, normally that will take, in terms of the leads, in terms of the training, that will take just a couple of hours of their time, really just to go over the basics of kind of looking at how things are changed from an admin perspective, how things are approved from an admin perspective, and again, looking at just making sure that they're competent in looking at the auditable trails as well, just so that there's kind of the backup information there that they can access should anything need to be checked. So really, just to summarise, it doesn't really take too much time at all in terms of the onboarding side of things. Again, the larger the team and the more individuals that are involved, it could take a bit longer. But in terms of one team, it typically does just take a couple of days to get set up. Second question that we have here is: can admin staff access the Rota as well? So the ones that necessarily aren't kind of coordinating things, so like the secretaries, of course they can indeed. When we look at the different types of Rota types, or the different types of users that we have in a Rota, we have obviously the standard users, so the people who are actually working those Rotas. Then we have the kind of the admin right holders, so the ones that are kind of making the editorial changes and have the ability to kind of approve different requests that come in. And then we also have the likes of, maybe it's just a secretary who just needs to access the Rota to see who's working or looking at leave. Again, they could be added in as well. So any type of user, we understand that it's not just a clinician tool, that RotaPal is for everybody, and everybody can be linked into that Rota. Kind of works in terms of linking. The next question we have here is: can Rotas be linked across different departments or different specialties? Yes, that's absolutely doable. So we talked about in that example there of looking at one particular unit, so the likes of the F1s being able to connect to the SHOs, SHOs to Regis consultants. Of course, that's the kind of bread and butter, but we obviously do offer up as well the ability to link in with different departments as well. We understand that it's not just one team that only works together, but it's also numerous specialties that work across, and there's a collective in terms of delivery of care there. So if you can link in, as long as the Rota has been linked with that particular specialty, and the lead on that side of that their team has accepted that, then of course you'll be able to see those individuals as well. So you can link it across kind of multiple teams. Now, it could also be that you're linking it across multiple sites. So you have a trust that works across maybe 2, 3, 4 different sites. You can link all of those together, so that you have a real connected unit and connected team that you need to be able to access their information. You can. Another question we have here are: what are the biggest benefits to users? So it's a great question. Hopefully that we have covered a lot of the kind of benefits and those kind of core benefits in addressing some of those issues and the frustrations that people have when it comes to Rotas. So one of the biggest benefits, I think, which you probably could have seen from the presentation earlier on, was actually looking at the amount of time that RotaPal will save. So when you look at those, the amount of time that's spent kind of operating different changes and updating Rotas and sending them out via Excel, when you bring RotaPal into the mix, the amount of time saved there, when you look at 90% savings on the amount of admin time that people were kind of spending, that's a massive benefit that we would recognise, and users themselves would recognise when RotaPal was implemented, the amount of that time that was saved, and allows them to go on and do other things. Nobody wants to be bogged down on a Sunday night doing their own admin time. They want to go out and enjoy that kind of weekend as well. So when it comes down to it, that's one of the biggest benefits to users. And with that, when you look at the kind of taking back control of your Rota, obviously when a user feels like they've got more control of the Rota and not having to work or to work a particular shift, and they can swap out of that, and they have the ability to do that very kind of seamlessly through RotaPal. It kind of empowers them to kind of make those changes, and empowers them to obviously to take back control of that, whilst notifying everybody else and making sure that everything is being kept safe and there's appropriate cover in all aspects of the Rota, so you're not taking away from their duties there. So that's another kind of big, massive benefit that that users would have there. And I think one of the from one of the kind of I suppose all-encompassing benefits of that is that there's complete traceability and transparency in what's happening within the Rota. So there's not that kind of the miscommunications that you would have if you're operating on kind of through WhatsApp's email threads, different uses of different documents and different departments. Is that there's kind of uniformity in that, and there's transparency within that, so that everybody knows that they're all kind of reading from the same book, and that there's no kind of discrepancies that are arising there, that everyone's accountable to what is done through RotaPal, and everyone's accountable to kind of the swaps and changes and requests that they make. So that's again a massive benefit for the users and what we've seen. So that kind of summarizes the kind of the questions that we have that have come through at the minute. Again, I'm sure there's probably numerous other questions you guys have. Please feel free to contact me either directly at harry@rotapal.com, or our generic email is hello@rotapal.com. Again, you can log on to our website, and there's an instant messaging service that you guys can use there as well, and that'll ping a message to one of the team, and we'll get back to you ASAP. So thanks very much for joining this webinar today. Really appreciate your time and attention that you've given, and if you do feel like that RotaPal is something that you guys want to use within your team, please reach out to us, and we can set up a more direct call and consult with you guys to see what best works for you, and we'll get you set up as soon as possible. Okay, thanks very much. Look forward to hearing from you soon.